The Real Estate Show rolls on here on KMED this weekend. Pete Belcaster and Joe Brett, the real estate guys, with you. And thanks for joining us this weekend. And boy, lots to talk about. Real estate market moving along throughout Jackson and Josephine County. Sales are up, but prices are up. Those are all good. The inventory's up. All the things that were kind of like lacking have seemed to taken off here in the last 60 days, you think, maybe?
We get some really good stats, not only with our residential and new home sales that we've always got from the MLS, but our real statistics now show the year-by-year trend of the days on market and the median prices and the number of home sales, number of new listings that are coming on the market. And it's really got a peak on the go right now. There's some great activity headed into the summer.
Yep, summertime is always a good time. People like to get out. Well, today, talking about rentals in Jackson County's rental housing market. Laurel Adams, she's the owner of All Cities Property Management. She joins us here today. How are you doing, first of all? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm doing well.
Now, tell me what the last time we saw you, you were like really harried. I mean,
harried?
Harried. You know, you were like hurried. You were busy.
Oh, well, that's a good thing.
That's a good thing. I didn't say it was bad.
That's unusual. How?
Yeah. All right. What's going on? How the rental market? Here we are a month later.
Yeah, the rental market's doing great. The owners are happy. The tenants aren't because there's not a lot to rent.
Yeah.
We still have there's just a real shortage. I used to get a lot of phone calls, just inquiries. Now I get in phone calls, can you help me find something? Mm-hmm. If you don't have anything, can you help me find something? Do you have any friends? Can you refer me to someone?
And then you have your realtor friends like myself who call you. Can you get anything in Southwest Medford?
As a matter of fact,
on the market, get ahead of.
But you're trying to get ahead of it, aren't you?
As a matter of fact, I've received numerous phone calls from real estate agents, which is unusual.
Well, in our office, I'm with John L. Scott office, it was amazing to me how many people are looking for rentals within the agents seeking. I mean, it's probably 5 or 6. I mean, a day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right. So
we have a shortage.
We still have that shortage.
Yeah.
And for you, last time you were here, you said you only had a handful. You only had a couple of rentals available. Is that still the case, or is it gotten better at all, or the vacancy rate is stretched, or what?
They're usually rented about the time they are when a 30-day notice comes in, and we post within a week usually or two.
Yeah.
They're usually gone. I think I have 3 right now.
See, that's what you had last time you were here. Wow.
Yeah, I had 2 last time. I had 3 now.
Yeah, out of 300 plus.
No, yeah.
So that's a low percentage, isn't it? Like 1%. Wow.
What's your problem with those last 3? We got to get those rented.
Actually, one of them is a specialty. One of them is, and I can't understand why it hasn't rented. It's a 55 and older community, and it's a beautiful home in Talent. At that wonderful 55 and older community group has a swimming pool and a clubhouse. I just don't think that in general the 55 and older group can afford above $1,000.
Really?
Yeah. What we really need, and we've talked about this before, someone needs to build some senior housing, affordable senior housing for our senior citizens. We just don't have enough. Well,
the person who probably could address that issue better than anybody else is Kara Carter, who's the director of housing for the Jackson County Housing Authority.
Build a little housing.
I mean, what she said is that. First of all, get that microphone right into there, Kara. So, is that true? What she's saying? I mean, senior housing, is that a real critical need? Is that what you see?
Yeah, we have seniors coming.
You got to get that here. Joe, fix that part.
We have seniors in our office looking for housing, and there's
nothing
a need
available.
For that.
There's nothing available for them.
There's quite a few subsidized senior housing projects in Jackson County, but I think where the gap is the people who don't qualify for subsidized housing but can't afford, like Laurel said, anything over $1,000. So anything in the $600 to $900 range, there's just not a lot out there right now.
There's not. And how has this rental shortage affected your clients and the folks that you work with try to get properties and homes for?
Well, for the Section 8 clients, it's made it a little more difficult to find a place to rent.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, they're having a hard time getting leased up. And for the tenants that come in to rent our units, our waiting lists are getting longer and longer because people, need a place to live, and we have nothing to offer right now because everything's full.
Tell us about the Housing Authority and how that works. It's been around, I know, for Well, the Housing Authority has been around a long, long time. How did they get started? What was their purpose?
The Housing Authority was formed by the Jackson County Commissioners in 1969 for the purpose of administering the Section 8 voucher program for Jackson County.
In Section 8 or the HUD program.
Or,
the
yeah,
HUD
as
program,
people call
the
it,
HUD rental program.
Right. It's a program that's funded by HUD. And at that time, there wasn't any Section 8 in this county, and they formed the Housing Authority for that purpose. The Housing Authority is not a county agency, but it was formed by the county commissioners for that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So since that time, we have the Section 8 voucher program, and where we have about 2,200 families that we help in Jackson County through that program. We also have about 1,300 plus rental units that we own and manage throughout both Jackson and Josephine County.
Mm-hmm.
So your federal program,
We're federal, state, local.
all through.
We have all kinds of different
And
funding.
And how would the Housing Authority acquire up to 1,300 rentals? How do you get those?
Over
how do
time.
you buy them?
We acquire existing properties sometimes. Our primary focus there would be to purchase properties that are affordable now, but the owner's looking to get out. So in order to preserve that affordability going forward, we would try to buy it to keep it from becoming an open market property. We also buy land and we build new properties.
That's what I'm more familiar with.
That's
the Housing
what we've
Authority.
done, several times over the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
So we do both of those, and it's just grown. Every year we try to do at least one new project. Our waiting list right now is about 4,800 families.
Oh my gosh.
4,800
for the Section 8 voucher program. So we're trying to keep up with the demand.
Well, I don't know how you keep
And I
up
was
with
gonna
that
say,
demand.
you
You can't do that.
And even with a little controversy in building in Medford recently with Cherry Creek, and the nice compromise that came out of that, you absolutely can't not find enough existing properties ever to get that backlog or that load. You've got to create new properties. That's going to be a crucial part of the mission to ever take the mission forward. And that's a lot of people waiting.
That's a lot.
Where are they? I mean, if just
what do they do?
Where are they at?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're at 4,800 waiting for a HUD, rental, where are they at?
A lot of families are living together.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of shared housing going on. There's families that are paying 70 to 80% of their income toward rent.
See, that's too much, isn't it? I mean, that's really a burden.
And the low vacancy rate has kicked rents up a little bit. That strains that even further.
Yes.
So if I was a rental, I mean, if I owned a property, I'm curious, and say maybe this could be, I could sell this to HUD, right? I mean, so does someone actually do that?
We've had people contact our office before and say, I have a property I'd like to sell, or I have a piece of land I'd like to sell. We're always interested in hearing what people have.
Mm-hmm.
We have requirements as far as what we will buy, where it has to be located, those sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, anytime somebody has something, we're not interested in any single family homes, duplexes.
So you don't have those? Okay.
We have some of those in our older inventory, but we don't do anything new that way.
Okay. So what do you seek then when you're looking for? You're looking for triplexes and
Larger
above?
multifamily.
Right. Larger
multifamily.
And you're playing the land game, which is a tricky wicket now. And a lot of that foreclosed land, as we've learned the last couple of weeks, and from the Home Builders Association, has been snapped up. And the question is, where's that the new land going to come from, and how accessible, how affordable is it going to be to obtain that land? Yep.
Yeah, a few years ago, it was pretty easy to snatch up a few pieces of land. But today, it's a little different. So,
and it's more money.
Yes.
Is there, when you develop these properties, like what's the one here in Medford? Cherry Creek. And the one in Ashland that you've got, the new one there on Clay Street, is called Snowberry. I drive by that one a lot, so I'm more familiar with that one. But does it pay for themselves when you get them up? Is that the part of it, or they don't subsidize them, do you?
It's very complicated. The way that those newer projects are funded is through a program called the Low Income Housing Tax Credit Program, and that's a federal program. It's an IRS program, and private investors put money into these projects.
Okay.
And they get a tax write-off for doing so. This was actually created by Reagan back in the 80s as a way to get private investment into affordable housing and lessen the amount of government subsidy.
Lessen the amount of government, sure.
So that was how that program was created. And the state of Oregon gets an allotment every year of X amount of dollars. And they distribute it throughout the state, and you have to apply, and it's a competitive application process.
Mm-hmm.
So we've luckily been awarded funding every year for the last 5 years. We have some really good developers on our staff that work really hard to get those applications, and they've scored the highest in the state over the past several years. So Jackson
That's pretty
County's
good.
Wow.
Yeah.
been able to get new projects every year.
We're talking with Kara Carter. She's the Director of Housing for the Jackson County Housing Authority, and Laurel Adams from All Cities Property Management here on this weekend's Real Estate Show. I find it pretty interesting. Do you have other projects that are...
We're just grilling Kara.
I know we're just grilling her here. Laurel is...
Stand by, Laurel. We're coming back here.
No, really. I mean, she's the most knowledgeable person in the area. I mean, if you need something, she'll know, and if she doesn't know, she'll say, "I'll find out."
How do property managers work with HUD? Do you work with them much, Laurel, or are you pretty separate in the way you guys operate?
We are separate entities,
Right.
But if I have a house that takes a HUD voucher,
Okay.
then I have to fill out all the paperwork and coordinate the move-in and the inspection process with Kara's office.
Because Kara then has the renter, right? I mean, you have the person
She has
who's
the
the
money.
renter.
No,
Right.
she has the money. Kara has the money
Uh-huh.
and an application that has to come to me
Okay.
that I have to fill out.
I see. So you work that way
along
together.
with the tenant who has to fill out my application. So the tenant has a very long process because they have to do two kind of. There's two people they're working with.
Two that you're working with.
I mean, we have to coordinate together to create the money exchange and to create all the.
Yeah. And Kara, how have you found working with property managers here in the Rogue Valley? Are they pretty cooperative with the Section 8, the HUD voucher program, or do you struggle with that? And I mean,
Most of the property managers we work with are great.
uh-huh.
They know what we need. They're quick at getting their paperwork turned in. They have reasonable expectations about what we're going to be doing. And it's been a great relationship. We actually have a really good landlord pool in Jackson County. We've been pretty lucky. We have a lot of really good landlords that we work with.
You said that last time you were here that this new legislation that we're going to talk about, it comes on July 1st. Really, things were pretty copacetic down here, and
That's
the
right.
legislation is going to kind of force some things that maybe didn't need to take place in our area.
Yeah. No, I don't. Kara and I both agree on that. Things were going well. Everybody was working together as a team. People were able to find rentals, either privately or through the HUD group that they have. And it was Portland.
Yeah.
Portland had issues, and so they drew us in with them.
So we got new legislation that was created that takes effect July 1st. Now that's going to mean.
And this is
what
real
the-
important for Kara to talk about this today.
And what? Okay, why is it so important? I mean, we've had a lot of rules.
Well-
I mean, you come through every
I
July,
know.
every
It's
January.
hard to keep
Laurel's
up with
got-
all your rules.
Yeah, Laurel's got a list of new rules for renters. You
Yeah.
know, and the one thing I think that our listeners have, I think, hopefully have learned from you so many times is that you better know the rules yourself. You need because
Or
the
know how to
renters
find
do
the
it-
Southern Oregon Rental Owners Association.
Right, because you got an investment and you've got sorts of things there. But so, well, that's good to hear.
It's really a simple rule, and as simple as it is, no one gets it. But it's so simple. And this is the rule: you can no longer deny an applicant if they have a HUD voucher. Period. So you cannot say no HUD. You cannot say I don't want anybody with HUD. You cannot deny an applicant or not accept a HUD voucher or a HUD person. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Did I say that clearly?
Yes,
Kara.
you cannot deny them simply by the fact that they have a voucher.
Mm-hmm.
So that can't be part of your screening criteria.
So in the
anymore.
past, like right now,
That's
I mean, so in the past, if I as the landlord, whether you have the direction as a property manager, they tell you I do or do not want
Correct.
a HUD Section 8. What's the right terminology? Section 8 sounds right.
Section 8 voucher.
The Section 8.
Or a
Section 8 of the
voucher.
Army. And Section 8. That's
That's a good thing.
it takes on different meanings in different government agencies.
It really does.
But technically, right now, they're trying to swing toward housing choice voucher is the name of it.
Housing
Oh.
choice voucher. Okay, so if I
like that.
so if you have one again in the past, you've been able to say I don't carry that, right?
Right.
Now you have to. And how do you go about doing this, Laura? I mean, what should be the rule for property owners? If you manage your own property or something like that, what do you have to do to comply with this?
We're all equal. We're all treated equally.
Everybody's the
We're
same.
all equal. You, me, Kara, we're all equal. Whether we have a HUD voucher or not, you must treat us all the same. And you may only qualify us on the things that you legitimately can pre-qualify us, such as income. You have a choice on pets. background checks, income to rent ratio numbers.
Mm-hmm.
All the things that you use to pre-qualify a tenant. But the HUD voucher is no longer part of that equation.
So if we were doing okay before, what's the impact of this legislation going to be? And given now you can't have landlords that have rental properties that are excluding HUD voucher candidates,
Right.
are we going to have even more pressure on the rental market or on those properties that are the few that are available?
Geez, Kara and I are looking at each other. We're kind of like sighing because you know what? I don't know, Kara. I'm not sure. Are you? Do you have a feeling?
I really don't feel like it's going to have a huge impact for
Yeah.
us yet, but that could be because I'm
We
underestimating.
have to keep an eye on
Yeah,
that.
we're just.
It's
I
so
feel.
new.
Yeah, it's so new, you guys. I just don't. I agree with Kara. I'm not really sure yet either.
All right. Well, hey, the real estate show going to roll on. Got a break coming up here. We're coming right back right after this, and we're with Laurel Adams and Kara Carter. We're talking about rental properties in Jackson County. Hey, the real estate show continues right after this. The Real Estate Show continues here on KMED this weekend. Pete Belcaster and Joe Brett, the real estate guys, with you, and thanks for being with us. The Real Estate Show seen on YouTube at youtube.com/Real Estate Show Oregon. All of our shows are there, and of course our real estate website at realestateShowOregon.com. And the show repeats at 9 o'clock on Sunday morning. It's our new time, 1 to 2 in the afternoon. Joe, we kind of get moved all over sometimes. We got here, there, and everywhere.
I don't necessarily like change, but I accept it as it comes.
Change is always good. We should
you
have change in the real estate world and rental worlds. I mean, nothing stays the same for any period of time.
The cool thing is your live time is still 10 o'clock in the morning, Saturday 1 p.m. People are still out and about,
Yeah.
kind of on the go, on doing real estate rounds and the real estate things, open houses on the weekends. So radio is still a medium that lets you kind of catch up and keep up, and then you got the internet in the backup. So
A lot of stuff.
if you get busy, if for some reason you had something better to do at 1 o'clock on Saturday, but the next morning on the repeat, you can always catch it on the website.
Laurel Adams is here. She's the owner of All Cities Property Management here in the Real Estate Show. And Kara Carter, who's the director of housing for the housing development, right? Housing programs for the Jackson County Housing Authority. We're talking about rentals and all the kind of crazy world of rentals. I've learned one thing from being around Laurel now for a number of years. Joe and I both learned this, that property management it's a hard business. I mean, I've got more respect for it's something I would think I would never do. Like have my own rentals. I would turn it over to Laurel. I would never manage them myself. That's what I've learned.
Real estate brokers by law can be property managed, but if I ever met one, I'd really question their
I've never
sanity.
met one. No, we'll let Laurel do that because she's really good at that. Okay.
They're focused.
Yeah, she's really good at that. Okay, Kara, the part of today's program we wanted to tell people and be aware of course, is the new rule change regarding Section 8. And you just told us that you got involved with the housing world because you experienced this whole program yourself.
I did. When I was young, I got married young. My husband and I were struggling. I was in college full-time at SOU, and we stumbled on some apartments that were being built on Berrydale by the Housing Authority, a place I'd never heard of before.
Mm-hmm.
But the rent was cheap and they were nice.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved in there, and then shortly after that, we got a Section 8 voucher, which I honestly didn't know what it was either until they sent me a letter saying I was getting one. So I utilized that program for 5 years. I graduated from SOU, and after I graduated, a job came open at the Housing Authority, and I thought, well, that'd be kind of an interesting job. So I went to work there, and I've been there ever since.
Ever since. Well, that's it's great when you have the experience yourself because you know what people go through to meet these programs.
What better person to be the advocate for all those folks? And I bet the waiting list wasn't 4,800.
It was not, because I think we got our voucher within about 6 months back then.
That was
pretty
speedy.
Yeah, that was speedy.
Yeah.
Now people are waiting about 4 years.
Well, we've always said, that we're going to have a shortage of rentals. We're going to have a shortage of individual homes, and we're certainly seeing that come through, a shortage of apartments, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully the market will take care of some of those. Okay, so what about, of course, this new rule that goes into effect in July, what is the big thing that rental owners, especially maybe, need to be aware of? Because you know the rules, so you need to explain it because we're all ears.
Well, I think the main thing for landlords to be aware of is this is now law. So the Section 8 voucher holders are protected under state law. Mm-hmm. So discriminating against them in any way can get them in big trouble. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to get in trouble with fair housing. You're talking big fines, possible jail time. It's just not something you want to mess around with. So my advice to landlords now is to, revise your screening criteria, take out the no HUD language. Make sure that when you're screening people, you're doing it in the order that you receive the applications, that you're doing everything by the book. You have documents showing what you've done. Because anytime you have new legislation like this, it also opens up the potential for tenants to make claims against landlords.
Right.
Saying, well, they discriminated against me because I have a voucher.
Right.
That may not be why they were denied. But if you don't have documentation to back up that claim, you could be in trouble. So
Didn't that sound like an echo of Laurel's?
Well, yeah. Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, you've been saying that
word for
for
word,
us for a long time.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So just be aware of that now. This is not a suggestion. It's not something, it's a law.
It's the law.
It's the law.
And the thing is, like some laws, like whether you wear your seatbelt or whether you talk on your cell phone is one thing. But this one, because there's another person involved, you could find yourself in serious trouble.
Right.
Because the renters, I assume, your renters know the rules, right?
The Section 8 tenants are finding out about this, yes.
Okay.
And so it's not going to take long for people to know. And I just don't want any landlord to get hit with claim just because they weren't documenting things correctly. Maybe they denied the person because they had a criminal history, which is fine. You can do that. But you need to make sure that you're screening your applicants in the order you get the applications. Don't try to avoid Section 8 by being tricky or thinking, well, I'm just going to do this instead. I'm going to raise my rent really high and then no Section 8 person can get it. That's not going to work either. Mm-hmm. So you just got to be careful.
Laurel, of percentage of owners, not percentage, but number of owners that you deal with, do most of them have allowed HUD vouchers in the past, or has that been an issue with certain landlords and they don't want that?
My landlords are my boss, so they dictate.
Okay.
They do ask for suggestions, and many of them listen to or take my opinion and will side with me one way or the other, depending on the property and where it is. But I would say about 35% will take HUD.
About a third. About a third. Is that what you kind of generally see around?
1/3 to a half of all landlords are okay.
A third or about
with it right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got about 50% of the landlords out there are going to have to get used to this now.
So it's the other 50% that
big
needs to be.
Yeah.
It's a lot of rentals.
And my owners are already fighting me. They're already
the ones who have not wanted the HUD vouchers. They're upset about it.
They're very upset. I have a couple that are actually considering selling their homes, their units.
But now there was a caveat to the law.
Yes.
That the way I understand it, that there was going to be some funding available.
Yes.
And you said this, that if the HUD person, comes in and destroys your property or damages the property, there's a fund available to pay for those as an incentive to get landlords, I assume, to say yes to this.
That was a way to get the landlord association to go neutral on the bill and not oppose
Just
it.
to go neutral.
Because this bill was actually killed a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And when they brought it back, they decided to sit at the table with the landlord association and say, okay, how can we get you to support this? And they said, we won't support it, but we'll go neutral as long as you give us some incentive.
And the incentive was to have, if there's damage, that it would be paid for out of a fund. Now,
yes.
The last time we talked about this with Laurel, there was no money. I mean, the legislature didn't appropriate any money for it, which kind of negates the program, doesn't it?
Right.
It seems to me. So is that changed?
From what I understand, there's been money set aside. I don't know an exact dollar amount, but they have charged Oregon Housing Community Services with administering this program, and they have a person in charge of it. So they're lining all that up and getting ready. So any Section 8 voucher holder who moves out of a unit after July 1st, and the damages are in excess of $500 up to $5,000, that's the cap.
Okay, $5,000.
If the landlord goes to court and gets a small claims judgment against that tenant, they can then turn that into the state of Oregon, and they will be reimbursed by the state of Oregon for their loss. Oregon will then go after the tenant to get the money back.
The state is going to go after the tenant, so they're going to recover their money.
Right.
They're going to get it out of your.
Right. It's not
what do they call that, Joe? They garnish your wages. Yep. They'll take your tax return.
Yes.
So I didn't realize that was part of the deal, that they're going to come after you. So you don't walk away.
No.
So the renter doesn't walk away. You do damage. You walk away scot-free. They're going to come and get you.
But the landlord doesn't have to bear the cost of the repairs and have that
by themselves
on top of his debt. His debt service.
Okay. How much do you see? And Carrie, you manage 1,300 HUD rentals.
Well, we manage 1,300 affordable rentals.
Affordable rentals. How much damage do you see out of this stuff? I mean, is it a lot? Is it a little? I mean, people may have wild misconceptions of what a HUD renter is.
That's I'd say it's not part. It's most of the problem with getting landlords on board with Section 8 is they've heard horror stories.
Mm-hmm.
There's always these urban legends about this Section 8 tenant that caused $50,000 with the damage.
Yeah, right.
We don't see that in ours. If we have a tenant who smokes in their unit or does something really damaging, damages the carpet from pets or something like that, that's where you're going to see high cost.
Yeah.
But we don't see holes in walls, beat up doors.
Well, that's normal wear and tear kind of thing that Laurel talks about. I think some of that kind of thing.
Well,
No,
not holes.
no.
Not holes. No, I know what I'm saying.
No.
Carpets that get worn out or
Yeah,
whatever.
worn out carpet, but
yeah.
So no, and really we have a whole bunch of different income levels in our apartment complex.
Yeah.
We have deep subsidy units where we're helping people at 30% up to 80%, and I don't see any difference between the lowest income and the highest income as far as damage goes.
Interesting.
And I would just guess that non-HUD renters and HUD, there's probably no disparity or difference in damages that landlords have to deal with.
I mean, that makes total sense. Hey, the Real Estate Show, one more segment to go here this weekend. We're with Laurel Adams from All Cities Property Management and Kara Carter from the Jackson County Housing Authority. Real Estate Show, 1 o'clock on Saturday, 9 a.m. on Sunday. We're coming right back after this. Real Estate Show rolls on here on KMED this weekend. Pete Belcaster and Joe Brett, the real estate guys, with you. Next week, we'll have a RE/MAX Market Watch show. We'll hear from Larry Frank. By the way, how's our good friend Bob Gervais?
I was just going to
say,
he's been in the office a couple of times.
No.
Yes, and this last week he was at the office meeting Tuesday.
Yeah, no.
So we're really excited to see Bob back out and around a little bit. Slow but sure, but he's on the mend. It's really good news.
Hey, he's one tough bird. He goes from like surgery, what he went through, and he's back. That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's great.
this soon. And you'd be surprised to hear this. Maybe not. Bob doesn't do well sitting around the house with daytime TV all day and nothing to do. Bob, that's not Bob's
better
world.
off at down there at RE/MAX.
Bob needs to be out and about and on the go. And so,
I'm glad he's mending.
He's in our thoughts.
Gosh,
for
that's
sure.
really good. Okay, today we're with Laurel Adams from All Cities Property Management. She's our resident property management expert on the Real Estate Show, and she's brought along today Kara Carter, who's the Director of Housing Programs for the Jackson County Housing Authority. We're getting an update on rental properties in Jackson County. We're talking a lot about HUD because that's what Kara manages, 1,300 HUD properties in Jackson County. You're a big landlord here and the whole thing. A HUD voucher. I've people hear that all the time. How do I get a HUD voucher? First of all, what do you have to do that?
You come down to our office and you fill out an application and you get on the wait list for about 4 years.
There's people how many new vouchers do you give out in a year, would you say?
Last year, I think we gave out about 270 new vouchers because people go off the program. So we pull people off the list.
So there is a chance, but you have to wait for a while to get it.
You have to wait.
What is an advantage? And this is what Laurel, what's the advantage of a person to have a HUD voucher versus just going to Laurel and saying, I need a property? Why?
The advantage of having a Section 8 tenant in your property is that they have an incentive to be a good tenant, and that's that voucher. They do not want to lose that voucher. It's very valuable to them.
So when I get the voucher,
I don't want to lose it. I've waited 4 years.
I've waited years to get it.
And it's allowed me some really comfortable housing for myself.
I can afford my
that
rent.
I couldn't have had otherwise.
What is what does the voucher entitle me to once I have it? And I go to see somebody like Laurel.
What you do is you tell Laurel, I have a Section 8 voucher and I'm looking for a place. And she would say, here's what we have. So let's say they find a 2-bedroom rental for $700 a month. And the voucher holder, what we do is we calculate their income and we figure out how much rent they should be able to pay based on their income.
Okay.
And it's usually about 30% of your income would go to rent.
Okay, 30%.
Mm-hmm. So let's say we say, okay, the tenant's going to pay $250, and then we're going to pay the balance for you. And we pay that balance directly to the landlord by direct deposit on the first of each month. So you'll get our portion on the first in your bank account, and then the tenant's responsible for paying the remainder to you. So let's say we pay you and then the tenant doesn't pay. You can issue them a 72-hour notice for their portion just like you would any other tenant.
Okay.
But you get to keep our money even if you're successful in evicting the tenant or they move out before the end of that month. You don't have to reimburse us any of that. You get to at least you have that part. You're missing the tenant part, but you have part of it.
The incentive is the interesting part to me. Laurel,
and
of course,
then I get to keep that money. And then that tenant loses their HUD voucher because they didn't pay me.
Right. How long can a person keep a HUD voucher?
They can keep it as long as they're income eligible and they follow the rules.
And that's what it is. So but they would lose it if they damage the apartment, and that's why.
Right.
Do you guys anticipate? Do you both anticipate a lot? I don't anticipate much claims against these HUD properties in the future because of that incentive.
If I waited for 4 years to get my voucher, I would be not very quick to.
I would not want to damage
to
the
compromise
property.
that.
I mean, you will on occasion run across a tenant who's having some sort of a problem in their life. Either it's employment, abuse, drug use, alcohol. There's, all kinds of things that can happen to a person. So sometimes you will have somebody that just doesn't care anymore and they're not going to be a good tenant.
Right.
So, yeah.
But they also, you said you inspect
that's true
them,
in any
right?
That's with
situation.
anybody,
Yeah.
right?
But you also inspect the HUD voucher properties, correct?
We inspect it before the tenant moves in to make sure it's decent, safe, and sanitary.
So Laurel does that in her properties?
Yep,
Okay.
so that's not a problem. And then every year we go back and re-inspect to make sure that it's still being maintained and that the tenant is holding up their end of the bargain. So we make sure that the house is clean, that it's not packed out, it's not a fire hazard, that things are in working condition. If the tenant damages something, we require the tenant to fix it, or else we put their payment on hold. So there's some incentive for the tenant there to maintain the unit while they're living in it.
And of the properties
That's a fair trade.
Yeah. And of the properties you manage, and Laurel, the properties that you manage with HUD vouchers, you have very little problems in terms of that.
And so just think about it. So they're getting one inspection from HUD a year. They're getting 2 inspections from me.
Right.
And then if I go in and I'm concerned, and this happened about a month ago, there was a cleanliness issue. When I walked in a home, the clothes were spread on the floor so thick that there was no walkway.
Okay.
And there's 2 children and a single mom with 2 children, and I felt it was a safety hazard. So I called HUD for an inspection.
Okay.
And they did what they called an emergency or a on-site
Special inspection.
Special inspection.
And that was without notice, correct?
Correct.
So they just showed up and they saw it. But unfortunately, they said, Laurel, they asked her to clean it up, but it's not something that they can really, they
really
can't
do
govern that, and neither could I. So, but my
at least
point
the
is,
tenant's aware.
the tenant's aware that I'm aware and that they're aware. And my point is that they helped me. They were. I asked them to help, and they were willing to help me try to remedy what I thought was a concern.
Well, that's an asset you don't have in a normal rental situation.
No, I don't.
A lot of people, I think, give HUD the wrong connotation of what a HUD voucher is and how the program, when it first started back in the 70s or something, people always had horror stories about it, and those have carried on for decades. But it sounds like it's so improved, it's so much better, it's so
Sometimes you
operating
just have
better
to
than it used to
learn
be.
the facts.
Yeah.
And especially what's happening here locally.
Yeah.
I think some real success stories and having the impact on lives that the program was meant to have.
And of all the federal housing programs like HUD and the USDA loans for low income that we see so much of, those programs have the lowest default rates of any housing program in the country. And so people who have these things that, if a HUD thing, I don't want to touch it, or this or that, or if you're a USDA, I don't want to touch you, that's really wrong because they're very much, the statistics do not bear that out.
Might want to update your files.
You need to update those files, absolutely.
Open your mind.
We're almost out of time. So, Carrick, how can someone get a hold of you if they need some more information about this?
They can call our office at 541-779-5785. My extension is 1002 if any landlords have questions about this new law.
And you're in the phone book, of course. You can find you online at the Housing Authority of Jackson County. Very good. Again, Laurel Adams, last word today goes to you.
Last word is Kara's also going to be at the SOROA general meeting the third Thursday of
17th
of June. Okay, be there.
And you know what? She's going to be talking about this whole program, and she'll be able to answer questions.
All right,
yeah, perfect.
And of course, Laurel is always available at All Cities Property Management to answer any of your questions as well. That'll do it for the Real Estate Show this weekend here on KMED. Joe, have a good week as well.
Good information. Thanks,
See you
Karen.
next
Laurel.
week. Next week, Remax Market Watch Show. Hey, have a great week, everybody. God bless. We'll see you next Saturday here on the Real Estate Show.
Thank you for listening to the original Real Estate Show with Pete Belcastro and Joe Brett, the Real Estate Guys. For advice, guidance, or counsel on any of our topics, or to watch a replay of today's show, visit our website at realestateshoworegon.com. This show is sponsored by RE/MAX, Ideal Brokers of Southern Oregon, Ticor Title, All Cities Property Management, and the Jackson Soil and Water Conservation District. We'll continue our weekly quest to enhance the value of your property and to make you a smart real estate consumer when we gather every Saturday and Sunday on KMED for the one and only original Real Estate Show.